Regional Human Service Center, and we're the Northeast, hence Northeast Human Service Center. And so what that means is I supervise really an awesome group of people whose job is to provide case management with kids who have serious emotional disturbance. So that would be kids who maybe are more on this end of the spectrum, who are struggling more. So for our eligibility criteria, they have a DSM-5 diagnosis, or a diagnosis of, like major depression, or anxiety, or several different diagnoses. It's been a year or more. They're functioning significantly below their peers, and they've had 2 or more services involved in their life. So their illness is serious and more of a longer term. And typically they might have been hospitalized or, more of a significant nature. So you may be involved with kids like that who, are coming out of hospital, and now I'm supposed to teach them math. And like, how do you do that? And so the kids that are referred to us, they might be in special ed, they might not be. But what our approach is we use it's called a wraparound process, which is to develop a group of people around that child. So a team of people, a team of support, to develop a plan of support to prevent and to address those areas that were not working before. So if a child's struggling in school, who on their school team would be a good person to be on their team? Who knows? That might be their science teacher, because science is their favorite subject and that's what they're doing best. Maybe that person is part of their team. I've seen that happen before, actually. An English teacher was once, so you know how sometimes you'll be asked to go to IEPs, and sometimes you're like, I don't have time for that. I'm not a special ed teacher, I'm just a regular ed teacher. Well, they're required to have a regular ed teacher, I believe. I don't know that law, I should know. But so you may be that person, and that may be a really, really important job, because they're probably doing well in that class, or you have a good relationship with them, and that's a strength. And so that's what we want to do, is build on the strengths. What's going good? How do we get more of the good? And so I brought a little bit about that. You can make a referral to this. Your school counselors, your school social workers, they all know it. Principals, administrators, that. So I'm going to start with the questions, and feel free to jump in. One thing I want to add, it's kind of a warning. I don't have all the answers. No one does. But what I can do is give you, based on my experience and my philosophy, I guess, a little bit, and then also what feedback I get from teachers that are working out in the field. So, and by the way, I was super impressed. I think I said that already. So the first question, I wonder what someone would suggest for students with high anxiety. Working in a high school, I see several students with high anxiety work in their own room or take online classes and don't attend regular class. What is the best way to handle the situation? Well, let's ask you, what do you guys think? Is that the best way to handle it? We don't know. Because we don't know that student. So for some students, maybe that is the best way to handle it, because they cannot tolerate being in a regular classroom. Is that the answer for that student? I don't know. Should we just jump to that and not try other things? Absolutely not. Because we want kids in classrooms, right? We want them to be in your classroom. But someone who's having high anxiety, if you think about a time that you experienced anxiety yourself and think about how that felt, if you can put yourself in that student situation a little bit and how difficult it might be to function in school, then we have to look at, from this student's perspective, how are they going to learn best? So online learning, maybe that is the best. I have a 16, well, okay, so he's 17, he's almost 18. He's in ninth grade and he has like 3 credits. There's no way he's gonna pass. And so in school, he's like in the special ed room, he's regular ed material, but he's had so much trauma and whatever. So I don't even think he should be in class. I think he should just be doing his GED and whatever. Parents aren't okay with that. But so my point is it's really individualized for each student. As a general rule, I don't know that online learning for a student with high anxiety is, I can't say good or bad because maybe it is what works for the student. But that question that you asked, that's the good ask. That's the good thing to do is to ask, is this meeting the student's need best? Not knowing the situation and saying that, no student should be in that kind of situation, I'm not sure if that's helpful, but asking the question is really helpful. A student in their own classroom, maybe that is what they need. I really think it depends on the student. Even if that is the case, and the education team says, yeah, we think that is what's best for the student, yeah, but what's our plan to fade back? Is that an option? Or could they be in a regular class 1 hour, building up to 2 hours? Or could they be in a extracurricular activity? And then the other part is, who's teaching them the skills to manage their anxiety? Were they referred to a therapist? Are they, how are they learning to manage their anxiety? Because school is one thing, and in a high school, if you're in that kind of environment, that's pretty hard to translate into college. And well, maybe it's not. Maybe it is more. College is online, right? Almost all of it, or a lot of it. So, does anyone have anything to add or any other thoughts about that? So the question, or the answer is, it depends, but ask the question. And ask the question in a respectful way that is a way of advocating for the students. Okay?
I have a question for you that kind of goes off on the anxiety. So if you have a student who is at the beginning or in the middle of an anxiety attack, I know that there's some tools that I've used. I did that. It's like a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and but I mean, do you have any advice for them? Or it's like, okay, they like, I'm having anxiety, I'm freaking out, and you're trying to calm the student down. What would you recommend and what to do?
Well, there's a few things that come to mind. First of all, if you're in middle school, that happens about 10 times a day. Because they're kind of drama but the other thing is that is how they feel. And so whatever you can do to help them get focused on the here and now. And so the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, that's a really good thing. Or just to, okay, why don't you take a minute and, clear your mind or go get a drink of water. Whatever is, kind of admissible in your classroom. But I think if that student truly is having that level of anxiety, they're not going to be able to learn. So I see teachers doing stuff all the time that they don't even realize, like walking by a student and who might be, you can tell is feeling real anxious. I've seen them just touch the desk of a student, and then that really helping a student to, okay, focus on that, or just my teacher notices or whatever. I think having a relationship with that student, after class you can say, I noticed it seemed like you were really kind of struggling. Can you tell me about that? Oh, I don't know, I was just freaking out. I work with teenagers a lot, so sorry if but I don't know, I was just freaking out. What do you think we should do if that happens again? And then having a plan. And it might be something so simple like, oh, I have to remember to breathe. So then if that happens again, you have it. Don't forget to breathe.
Can you just tell them? I'm sorry, the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Oh, okay, so have you done that?
I haven't, but we're gonna get into it later, but we might as well in case, since you brought it up.
Okay, so anyone watch the show The Fosters? Okay, so I watched it last night, it was a new episode. And they actually demonstrated it on there, kind of. One of the moms was having a panic attack, and so And I'll give you some information from Sam so that has tools that you can use also. So if a person is experiencing anxiety, their emotions are in control. And so part of what you want to do is help them to get their emotions in control. So, get right in front of them. Okay, tell me 5 things that you can see. And then they have to focus on it. And tell me 5 things. Wall, I see the wall. Okay, tell me 4 things that you can touch. Then actually have them touch. Then 3 things that you can hear. 2 things that you can smell. 1 thing you can taste. The purpose of that is to get them to focus on managing themselves. Okay? It's a good thing to practice with yourself or a friend. And you can actually, there are YouTube demonstrations, lots of things. Also have a lot of like middle school kids, or elementary kids, they'll do breathing, like star breathing, and breathe in and a star and out to the star. So there's lots of tools, and your school counselor will have that information. And I think as a teacher, it's good information to have. If a student is needing that on an ongoing basis, then they probably need some outside intervention because you probably have however many other students. But you still want to attend to that student. So, you got to get to know your students. I think one of the important things to do is have a relationship. So greet them eye to eye. Teenagers, they'll pretend like it doesn't matter. It does. They need to feel like you like them, or at least you acknowledge them, and that you care about them. So whether that's a fist bump, eye to eye contact, noticing, I saw how hard you were working on that on problem number 7, and specific to what they were doing, so they know it's genuine. That makes a lot of difference. And then when someone is experiencing anxiety, they know it's a safer place, or you're someone who has an understanding. I always struggle because I work in this world, but I know in education, your focus is, we got to get through chapter 26 here, and we are 2 lessons behind, and it's supposed to do the end of the curriculum test or whatever. So I understand the balance, and I understand how difficult it is. So hopefully, just by having an awareness, that will be a good help. So the second factors that have helped to decrease negative stigma. Well, we hear more and more about suicide. We hear more about National Depression Screening Days. We hear about bullying. We hear about these things all the time. It's in the media. So obviously that has helped the stigma, I think, to decrease the stigma that it's okay to talk about. There's campaigns, national campaigns, to increase awareness. In schools, like most schools will have like pillars of character, which also leads to kind of self-care and self-management. They're not always called it, they're different things. Are you guys, any of you guys in schools right now? I know some people are.
They'll have a 10-hour, some people are in the middle of it, some people might be done, some people haven't started yet, but they're doing 10 hours in the schools.
Middle school, high school, or?
Depends, it varies, some are in one, some in the other.
Okay. Well, middle school teachers, in my opinion, are like kind of a unique group. You kind of have to be a soldier to be a military, or to be a middle school teacher. And the middle school teachers, they love it. They have fun. Kids like them, and they stay for a long time. That's my experience. And it's a hard time to be a teacher because it's a hard time to be a person as a middle schooler. Like, it's sweaty and hot and confusing. Really, it is. So, God bless y'all. Are adolescents more susceptible to mental illness because their emotions are harder to control? Absolutely. you probably talk some about developmental stages of adolescence. So you know that they're trying to figure themselves out. Their brains are maturing. Their bodies for sure are maturing. And so as their bodies are maturing, their self-concept is super, super sensitive. So this bullying or this, weight stigma and everything from pimples to hair color is very much scrutinized and they take it very sensitive. And so if you're a person who might have, sort of some genetic pre-indicators for like depression, adolescence might be a time that is going to be even more challenging for mental health for anybody. But then if you have some other pre-existing things like the parents' genetics or trauma or multiple foster care placements or moves or instability in the home, all that adds together. So is it more difficult? We have lots of kids referred at age 12, 13. Most common type of mental health problems, again, I'm not going to talk about diagnosis, but anxiety and depression is big. Teenage suicide continues to rise. Anxiety is probably one of the most debilitating, and I think it's pretty pervasive. In that we all know what anxiety is, but extreme anxiety or anxiety that continues ongoing, and kids who struggle and then they have anxiety on top of it. If you're already like, my science grade is a D and I have a test, and if I don't pass this, then I have to take it again in summer school, and then in summer school I have to get up and I have to be at school at 7:45. I don't have a way to do that. So then you can see how like school may not be the problem, but it might be adding on to what's already there. Best advice to a teacher in dealing with mental health crisis. So like for example, suicide. So I think the best advice is to use the supports you have in your school. You have school counselors, you have school social workers, and know your bounds. As a regular ed teacher, your relationship is so, so important. But when you have a student who says, I'm going to go home after school and here's my plan, I can't do it anymore, I have to end my life, everyone would be better off without me. Now granted, kids aren't always that, they don't tell you all of that. But if you have concerns, you're best to go to your school counselor or your social worker, and they should intervene. Or you probably have a team of people and use that team. And for sure, like in a small school, sometimes that's the principal, sometimes that's the administrator. But make sure to pass that on. If you have a relationship with that student, I think it would be very appropriate to have, kind of an open-ended discussion about it if you can. A child who's really depressed and isn't talking, they're probably not going to talk to you in a class setting. But maybe a few minutes after class, you can have an open-ended, what's going on with you? I noticed this. Something like that. May not talk to you, but if you're concerned, you should talk with them. So I think most schools I know most schools, they have like a team for that. All of them in Grand Forks do. And I'm sure every school must have that by now. In addition, a lot of schools or school districts will have, this is a national program. It's called Sources of Strength. This would be something that anyone can get involved in. It's a peer-to-peer kind of program, and it's evidence-based. And so what the goal of it is it's called Sources of Strength. And so the goal is to reduce risk and increase resilience, because we know if kids are more resilient, they're less likely to commit suicide. And so this is a peer-to-peer kind of thing, but they need adult mentors, they need adult people to help guide that. And I'm gonna leave these for you, but then also there's a website, there's lots of information. They are using it at some of the middle schools. And this would be certainly a great thing that would be, all the resources can be obtained from the website, and it would be a good thing for pretty much anyone to be involved in it. And it's peers supporting each other with adults or guidance. But the whole goal is resilience and what are your sources? Like how is your life good? How can you make it better? Kind of sources of strength, I guess. Well, I guess that's the title of it. But it's about having hope and spreading hope and how we treat each other, how adolescents treat each other. We know it's not always the best. Okay, we're on like question 4 and there's
Some of them are similar.
yeah. Okay. How do we go about helping our students with the mental or emotional issues without crossing a line and getting too involved in their personal lives? Whoever wrote this, give them a star, because that's an awesome question. Because we care about our students, okay, and we want them to be okay. We don't want to have to worry about them, but sometimes we do. And so you got a student who says, I don't have a place to go tonight. Well, you're not going to say, well, come on over to my house. But your school counselor, your school social worker, walk them down there and say, you know, Fred here, he's concerned, he's worried, he doesn't have any place to stay tonight. So go with them, but keep in your lane. So if you think it's probably not okay, it's not. But Harold wants to join the basketball team. Okay, that's not such a good idea because you can wear them with any shoes, right? I mean, I know you're supposed to. Let's see, let me give you another example. Well, I'll just go with that. And this is a case that I've done, and maybe you guys can tell me if I've gone too far. So Harold wants to join the basketball team. He's got a whole lot of anxiety, but he's a really good basketball player. And I think it would be super good for his self-esteem to be in it. And the coach is someone who he has this connection with. He's his math teacher, I think. His name's not really Harold, I just made that up. So, but Harold's shoes are like Velcro, you know, with the holes in them. You can't really wear them playing basketball. I mean, so somehow those new basketball shoes, you know, they just showed up at the school. I don't know how that happened. Okay. I think that's okay. But if you do that, something like that, you do that voluntarily, and it's not like something you put in the newsletter, and you do it, make sure it's for the purpose that it's intended. Like, are you giving them help up? I don't know what your school people would say. Is that something that would be okay?
If they just kind of show up, I think if the kid knew where it came from, maybe, but it's one thing where like it showed up.
Someone donated them.
Someone donated them, and cause sometimes too, those social workers, they might have a closet of stuff.
They probably do.
You know, and so that's definitely possible. And but I think you'll be crossing the line if you're like, let me buy the shoes for you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah, but if they just, you know, yeah, if you, it's because then they might be dependent upon you or the parents.
Right, and then also as a teacher, it, you know, might put you in a bad spot. And then also, you know, ethically, you don't want to cross lines. But did I cross the line there? What do you guys think? You're good? Okay. Well, yeah. But I really wanted to be in it, and my gosh, it was so right on. He's doing so well, and it's that teacher, that coach, has changed his kid's life. Doesn't even know it. Changed his kid's life. Not even a doubt in my mind. Suddenly he's passing all his classes. Huh. Okay. How has approach to adolescent mental health changed in the last decade? Prescriptions, counseling, awareness in school. Well, I think awareness has increased a ton. And I think partly for sad reasons that there has been increases in suicide. But also there is more awareness and there is more efforts to reduce stigma. So I think there's definitely more awareness in school. As far as, referrals for therapy and that kind of thing, absolutely those are higher. And it's okay, kids are okay doing that for the most part. Some don't want to, and some just do because their parents tell them to, like go to therapy, but definitely an increase in that. Prescriptions, for sure an increase in that as well. Sometimes people say, oh, we're over medicating our children. Maybe we are. Maybe we should put more resources into trying to work through things so they don't get to that point. I'm not sure. But I do know sometimes taking like an antidepressant for 6 months or a year can help, especially like an adolescent, help them get kind of to the next developmental stage where they're better able to handle some of the internal conflicts that they have. Does that make sense? So it's a yes and no answer. That's how it is in mental health, I think. Well, it kind of is. What would I change about the way the educators and schools generally approach student adolescent mental health if I could? Wow. Okay, so what I would do is I would have your classes be half the size of what they are so that you could actually teach and look at the student as a whole. Because then I think the mental health would just be part of it. That's right, I thought I had the power. And then I would also have more resources for you. So maybe a counselor or an actual like therapist in each school. And boy, there's just so many things I would dream for. But I think for educators, I would want you to have more support. You're asked to do a lot, I think. Geez, I'm not trying to scare you out of being teachers. I hope that isn't what it feels. Some suggestions to give students to improve their mental health when they're going through a difficult time. Great question. And they're not going to say, man, I'm really struggling, but you'll see it. This kid who's just a student who's maybe done well and is always in class and, participates and gets assignments in, or maybe now you've noticed some changes in their behavior. They're not getting stuff in, they're sleeping at their desk. The things that we would say to everybody, are you getting enough sleep? How are you gonna, what can you do for exercise today? I know you hate exercise, but could you go for a walk today? Can I see if that'll help? Obviously they're gonna do what they wanna do, but we can mentor those things to take care of ourselves. When's the last time did you eat lunch? Have you eaten anything today? Those kinds of things. Okay, this one's like a paragraph long, so let me think if I can. Let me see how I can. So basically is you can't force a kid to talk about what's bugging them, and so how pushy should you be? And what's realistic? A good question, because sometimes kids are struggling and you want to help and they're not talking to you. So then maybe you can ask them, is there someone that you can talk to, or someone, who do you really trust? Sometimes they say no one. And then your school counselor, your school social worker. If you feel like a student is at risk, then you need to intervene. So today they don't want to talk to you, but you keep giving them a smile. 3 days from now they may say, my mom died. That's what teenagers do. They just once they develop trust, they just drop a bomb there. And then you're like, oh, well, tell me about that. Not always. Sometimes they're, oh, my girlfriend's sister, blah, blah, and it's a lot of, and you can't even figure it out, but sometimes just listening is all you need to do. A lot of peer stuff. I don't know if it's bullying or if you want to just say, the whole social media stuff is, in my opinion, just a nightmare. And I think that's the one thing where this sources of strength is helpful, because peers talking to peers rather than using the social media as much. And maybe getting to know each other and supporting each other instead of, through this fake image of who you are on social media. Encouraging kids to be involved in activities. I think that could be a proactive way. If you're a coach or you're in an activity and you got a really, a quiet student or whatever, or someone who you're concerned about, try to get them involved in your activity. That's what I would say. How does a teacher draw the line between being concerned about students' well-being and stepping too far into their personal life? That question right there is how you do that. You should think about, okay, what's okay to do here, and am I trying to help the student as a teacher, or is this too far? But having that thoughtful discussion to yourself of, how should I handle this? And if you don't know, talk to another teacher, talk to, a mentor that you'll have. And they might have ideas or resources. But I think being really, really aware of that and knowing yourself, like, those kids that are like, other kids would call like, geeky, I know they got all kinds of terms now, but whatever, and their pants are too short, and like their hair is always a mess, and they're just a hot mess. I am a sucker for kids like that, because I just want to take them, I just want to, dude, comb your hair, and like, you can present yourself better. I'm totally a sucker for that, and I know that, so then I have to just try to not push my own values on it. Or a kid who comes in the same sweatshirt for like 6 weeks. It's really hard not to say, hey, I got you a sweatshirt. That's probably not okay, because that's their favorite one. I mean, especially in middle school, they wear the same clothes all the time. I know, I have a middle schooler, I have to wash clothes frequently. But, so then you look at, okay, is this my need for them to fit in better, or do I feel sorry for them, or, what is the appropriate line? And I think you have to look at your own kind of internal guidelines, but then also ask a mentor, ask another teacher. That sound right to you? Okay. What made me want to be a speaker on mental health? Well, I'm not. I'm just doing this. But I do have a passion for kids, and I have a passion for people who want to help kids to function their best. And so that's you guys. So, of course, I would say yes to that. I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. I see you guys really getting information now being so critical for students' mental health. Is it difficult to talk to students? Absolutely. But I find once they have your trust, they want to. For the most part, they want to. Is it good or bad if someone has undiagnosed mental disability? Is there a reason why someone would be told, not told? I guess I would be for making sure that they know, so that they could better understand themselves, and so they could maybe set some goals or have some dreams of, it doesn't have to be this way and things can get better. Because one of the worst predictors of suicide is hopelessness. Like, I don't have any reason to stay around. And so one would hope by knowing, you are showing symptoms of depression, what that means is this. And what do you think we should do? How should we try to get things better for you? What would you like to see? And so that's what a lot of my staff work with. Like, there can be everything wrong, but to the student, what's your goal? What do you want? Well, I want to get all passing grades. When you're like homeless and you don't have any money for food, but you want to pass your classes, it's huge strength though, and I've seen that. So is it bad or good? Well, the other thing is if a child doesn't know and it's not affecting him, I mean, I guess I'm not sure why you wouldn't want to tell them. Like, if they have anxiety, wouldn't it be good to know, like, why do I feel like I'm having a heart attack? They probably know, that's what I would guess. But also, education is important, very important. Is it a good representation of pop culture, good or bad? Or does it need more work with shows such as The Good Doctor and The Shadowhunters? The dark artifices are having both representations of a character with Asperger's. Okay, this is a great question because it's good and it's not good. It's good because then without that, people might not have any understanding or introduction. Anyone watch A Good Doctor? So okay. So I find it fascinating because I think this guy is like amazing at acting as a person who has symptoms of autism spectrum disorder. So I think it's good education. However, it's that person with autism. It's not all people with autism. And the other part I find good about it is that it may show the positive qualities a person has, like he's really good at this, this, and this. And then it also shows some of the social stuff that he really struggles with. So it can provide education. I'm not aware of the other one. But I think it's positive and negative because education has to start somewhere. As long as people don't say, well, I watch a show, so I know all about autism. I saw a show on that once and this is what I learned. Same with like, what's that show that there's people who have Down syndrome? Anyway, there's a show. So it's just the same thing. Like it's good to see their strengths and some maybe characteristics, and to see them as part of a family and as a person who works. Kind of see a character who has all these other parts about them, and they have Down syndrome. So it's good that way, but that can't be your sole source of education. As a future educator, can I recognize signs of mental health distress? And once noting, how do I address it with a student? What resources can I offer? Good question again. So recognizing signs of mental health distress. So you will know these. You will see these. You'll see the kid melting down in your class. And, as you get to know your students, you'll see. I have one student I can tell because when she's having a lot of anxiety, I can tell because her breathing changes and then her face turns red and pretty soon it's just like blank, like just shut down. And so if you intervene then, it's much better. But you'll see students who, like changes in personality, changes in their, how they're doing in classes, isolating from peers, not coming to school, changes in their dress. Now I say that with the kind of warning, like they're kind of figuring themselves out, so dress changes a lot anyway. But someone who goes from, dresses and whatever to all black and whatever, and then stays there, that might be a concern. It might not be. It's worth having the question.
We probably have a couple minutes and then so we'll have time for the questions too.
Great. Okay, I think I'm almost done.
Oh, okay.
So the other thing is that I want to mention that goes with this is one of the things that you can do is educate yourself. And there's hundreds of millions of information on the internet. One really good source is SAMHSA. It's the National Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. This has educational information. It's got information that you can just where you could make a referral for services, research, toolkits to do like any kind of depression education, anything of that. So I'm giving you something you can keep so that when you are teaching, you have kind of a resource. And the website is right down here. And it's one I use because it's national and it's evidence-based. So I think it's a really good resource for you for education. I'm gonna pass that out, and then I'm also gonna give you the sources of strength. You can take one of that. And I think your best bet as educators is to increase your knowledge and know that you have a team for a reason. Your team is to support you and stay in your lane,
So
know your boundaries.
what class is it that you teach? Again, like there's, you were just telling me, is it through social work or something?
Yeah, social work and mental health.
Okay, and what was the name of that class that you're teaching?
Social work and mental health.
Oh, okay, yeah, social work and mental health, and then that's 3,
So it's a whole semester, so,
yeah.
I mean, this
In
is
case-
just
in case
40
somebody
minutes,
was-
this is like 45 minutes of
Yeah.
blah.
In case somebody wanted to investigate your class or something.
Oh, sure. I think as educators, just having enough awareness that, oh, I remember reading about this and this is a good place to go. So that's why SAMHSA is a good resource for you.
Do we have any questions? Like if you had a burning question or if it's something you thought up or whatever the case may be? Now's a good time, just put up. Or if we think of any other questions, we will definitely forward them your way.
All right, I have 2 things to leave on. Number 1, no one has all the answers in mental health. It takes everybody. Number 2, what you guys do, what you will do, is critical. It's important.
Excellent. Well, hey, let's give a round of applause. Thank you so much.
You guys